You ever fight your negative thoughts and feelings only to realize it probably made it worse? Planting the seed starts with monitoring your thoughts and managing your emotions, but it doesn't have to mean going to war with yourself. In fact, the more you know your shadow, the more you can uncover what is authentically fulfilling for you. So look at it like this. Your mind plants the seed. Your emotions water the seed. Your actions nurture the seed. And your spirit is your daily devotion for managing the growth of that seed. And so today I'm going to share with you and help you evaluate the seeds of the shadow so that you can realign those manifestations to bring in more fulfillment into your life. And this is something that we do through the process of self-actualization. So, hi, my name is Jessica. I am a coach for the self-actualization process. And I am someone who did try a lot of shadow work the hard way, someone that tried to confront it in the most challenging of ways, only to realize that I had created an inner war with myself rather than doing myself much benefit. I created a lot more harm by trying to confront something that you can't see head on. The only way to magnify and illuminate the shadow is by going into it with compassion and understanding. And that's what I want to share with you today. When we're speaking about the shadow, it can be really easy to develop false narratives around what that means. And a lot of it is because the shadow is just an unseen part of us, and there are a lot of layers to it. So today I'm going to share with you the simplest explanation that I can that will help you better understand how it operates and also the power behind it. So as you can see, this illustration that I've created, this is about how the conscious and the unconscious work together. And the shadow is a part of the unconscious. It just means that you're unaware of it. And this is how patterns can easily develop and be created without us understanding where they came from. And so when we're working with the shadow, we can begin to change our patterns and we can bring the unconscious to the conscious. So the shadow holds all of the thoughts and beliefs about yourself that have been evolved into unmet needs. So you can't be the part of yourself that you aren't aware of. When we have unmet needs, we will still look to fulfill those needs, but it's usually done in a harmful or an unhealthy way. So these needs have a cause and they have an effect. The cause is the action of being rejected, abandoned, or neglected because something wasn't validated throughout our life. And this happens various times throughout our life. And it's not just something that your parents or your family did. Sometimes it's just that something that you identified with did not fit into your culture or society. There are so many ways that this can show up. And it happens to all of us as we're developing into a mature, practical, thinking individual. There are certain things that are no longer going to align with what we had created a sense of identity around as a child. We all have these invalidated parts of ourselves. It's just a natural part of developing a mindset that helps us adjust to the environment. And our survival instincts will always dominate over any ideals. So As a child, you don't have the authority to make those choices and those decisions for you. And when you're not in that position of authority, your survival will dominate over your choices. And so you'll choose to throw away whatever that identity was in favor of whatever helps you adjust and survive within your environment. So it's like when you were little and you wanted to be a superhero or a princess. And one day the world told you that wasn't possible. So you rejected all of the qualities that were attached to that belief. So all of the parts of you that wanted to help others, that wanted to be admired and looked up to as strong and resilient or lovely and gentle, all of those qualities were thrown out with the superhero and the princess identity. You didn't know how to discard the idea without discarding all of the qualities that were attached to it. So when these parts of us are rejected, we develop emotions, and those emotions lead to behaviors, and those behaviors lead to patterns. The emotions and the patterns are projected through self-righteousness, greed, lack of ambition, lack of self-control, self-centeredness, resentment, and envy. Or you could even say, like if you were talking about it religiously, you could say they're the seven deadly sins. Now, are they deadly? Well, they hurt your ability to rise into your authentic self-expression. So they can be looked at as a soul erosion. So when we realize these emotional patterns exist, we should not suppress them. That doesn't mean that we're active in them either. The answer is actually a lot more simple than what you'd expect. The solution is to decide what kind of person you are. What and who is your character? Then you work through the process of self-actualization with that in mind, what you want. So if you want to be wealthy and popular, then you're going to find that the core qualities of that is you actually want to be someone that is admired and secure. You think that you want a lot of attention and followers, but at the core of that, what you really want is to be seen and heard. So your shadow has two ways of dealing with this when it hasn't been acknowledged. The first way is the primary way that our world is governed. People want something, they think the only way to get it is through their shadow, so they plow through everyone and everything that gets in their way. And that is how many operate through the shadow. Eventually, it destroys them and or others around them, and everything they built falls apart. Then there's another way the shadow works. And this is more of a way that most of the collective operates. So our shadow says we aren't the kind of person that will destroy ourselves or others to get what we want. So we settle for whatever we can get. We'll withdraw and restrict ourselves to just kind of getting through life. And this is just as harmful as the first way. It's just not as obvious or loud. It comes off as a sense of humility, but it's really false humility. And it's really just a way of giving up your own divine power and handing it over to someone else. So then we have the third way, and that's the way that I want to share with you. And this is a way that we work through the self-actualization process so that we can find a better way to relate to ourselves and to the world around us. So it means becoming clearer about who you are and what you want. It means that every step of the way, you're working towards something that's true and valuable to you. So it is a commitment and it is a devotion. So in this process, you'll begin to see that you were never withheld from what you wanted. You just felt too small to reach it. It was like put on the highest shelf, so you didn't think you were big enough to grab it. And you thought that only the ones who were born with super long legs could grab it. But you're wrong about that. It is within your reach. You just really have to reach for it. And it's not going to just fall into your hands until you're ready to catch it. So I tried to simplify this illustration so that when you see it, it's pretty fairly simple without explanation. And I just want you to be able to look at it to remind yourself what it all means. All of our needs have to be met within, or the world will always seem disappointing and unsatisfying. So once we get to a point of meeting those needs within, then we show up more authentically and we can relate to others from a place of true connection rather than trying to satisfy an insecurity. So a lot of this insecurity, it comes from not feeling a sense of safety within. So it has to be resolved first in the inner world. So you can't develop trust with others if you don't trust yourself. You can't provide authentic love to others if you're just trying to get your needs met. That's transactional love. So loving yourself, even, that looks like building approval and trust for who you know yourself to be. So it's seeing yourself in a way that's supportive and validating, but it's also knowing that, well, you're not perfect. Starting with the bottom portion of the diamond is the pure essence of who you are. These are your natural talents and abilities, and those are oftentimes buried within the unconscious. Layered on top of that is the shadow. So let's say when you were younger, you thought that you had the ability to be a superhero, and you wore capes, and you pretended you could fly. You thought of yourself as a superhero. You believed you were capable of being strong and standing up for others. Then, let's say when you're about 8 years old, your neighbors made fun of you for wearing a cape all of the time. And eventually it bothered you enough that you stopped wearing the cape. Now you weren't sure who you were because you weren't a superhero anymore. So you started looking around at others, trying to figure out where you belonged. Now, based on your environment, it looked like you belonged with the kids that played, let's say, baseball. So you started playing baseball. And now you believe you deserve the life of a kid that plays baseball, not the life of a superhero. So what happens here is that your need to be seen as a strong protector, it's suppressed. The natural qualities that you possess to be a strong protector are suppressed, and they're replaced with the kid that plays sports and cares about winning. And this is just a general scenario of how this could play out. So the need to be seen as strong still remains, and you'll look to meet that need. And let's just say in this case, you become overly competitive because you're trying to fill an unmet original need. So you want to be seen as strong. So you develop these behavior patterns of being overly competitive, and others begin to identify you this way. So now let's take this person into adulthood. You're overly competitive and you've alienated colleagues. You only care about winning to a point that no one wants to be around you. And your relationships are transactional. And you seem to be winning at life, but you're unsatisfied. the original need is not truly being met. Then one day, you realize you're unhappy and you need to make changes. So you get clear about what kind of person you actually are. You know you're the kind of person that wants to help others. You know that you're strong and you have the capacity to help others. So you begin nurturing that idea. So instead of being overly competitive, you want to use that determination to support others. Now you're beginning to self actualize. So when you're here, you don't need to find out why you became overly competitive. You don't need to confront your shadow directly. It'll show itself on its own. So let's give this guy a name. We were saying this is you. Let's say this is Brad. So Brad now realizes he is so unhappy because he has only cared about winning and his achievements. So he decides he wants to become more cooperative and relate to others in a way that helps them. So he has planted the seed. Now Brad can begin to prioritize, which is to create boundaries around that seed. He's going to water that seed through prioritizing, helping others. So he's holding himself accountable and he's setting boundaries with himself to make this a priority. Then he's going to nurture that seed, and this is done by taking action, by contributing towards the development of himself and showing up for others. So others will then begin to identify Brad as someone who broadcasts his intentions through actions of helping others. So his daily devotion is to help others, and it becomes obvious because it's reflected back to him through how others respond to him. Then, to finalize the process, he observes that others are responding to the changes that he's made. Now he sees himself as someone who has helped others through his assistance and support. He now has a new self concept. So, what happens to the shadow during this transformation? Well, the shadow will continue to create self doubt around whatever you're doing throughout the process. So, it'll remind you about the previous disappointments of the past. It'll tell you, so in Brad's situation, it would tell him that he needs to be the winner, he needs to compete. However, when you stay focused on what you're working toward, you will transcend a level within your shadow that holds you back. So over time, when you stay focused on what you're nurturing and what you're moving towards, new beliefs will form. And beliefs are created through consistent effort and repetition. So to fully embody a new self-concept, you'll need to move through all four aspects of yourself that creates the wholeness within you, which is your mind, your emotional body, your physical embodiment, and your spiritual attunement. So very naturally, the previous patterns, they fall away and they're replaced by new patterns based on the new beliefs about yourself. Now, when you show up in the world, you show up very differently than you did before. Your connections will naturally align to your new self concept, and your satisfaction in life will increase. And all of this culminates to giving you more potential and energy to continuing on and continuing to open up new doors for your potential because your potential is unlimited. It's only limited to the amount of time that you have to put into it, which we're all limited in time here. So, this concludes my transformation of the shadow through self-actualization process. I really hope this helps you diminish some of the challenges that we all share in when we're trying to work through em- just empowering ourselves and bettering our quality of life. So, thank you very much for joining me. Take care. Bye bye.